Hello, everybody. Can you hear me good? Just for my understanding, you can use the chat. Okay, okay. Thank you. My name is Serge, and I'm a Softacom CEO. And today I will lead this webinar about migration of legacy Delphi project to .NET Framework. Just for my understanding, maybe I will change the direction of the webinar. Can you also provide some feedback about your positions in your company, so maybe your company owners, and in this case, I will know I will know more better which questions will be more interesting for you. Anyway, you can do that during the webinar. Thank you. I think that you also can ask questions if you will have them, of course, after each slide, and also in the end of the webinar we will have a Q&A section where I will try to answer any questions that you will have. Also, I will be on May 9th, on the next week, on the Delphi Days 2019 in the Brussels, and if somebody will also be on this meetup or conference, and we can meet personally. Also, before I will start the webinar, I'd like to provide some introduction about my position about this webinar. I'm a Delphi MVP, and I'm also a Delphi evangelist, and I'm accounting and bidding on Delphi, and I think this is the best tool for software development. But anyway, we have a lot of questions from the clients, customers, and also from developers, and we have to discuss this possibility to migration to .NET also, because we are not living in parallel reality, and of course each system has pros and cons. Okay, let's move on. In the beginning, just a couple of words about us. Our company headquartered in Eastern Europe, in Minsk. Minsk is the capital of Belarus. It's about 10 million people population. Our company is we are Delphi experts, and we are performing migration. We are performing migration and digital transformation of legacy software and developing new one. It includes software enhancement, re-engineering, support, and so on. By the way, I will try to be not too boring. If you will think that I'm boring, you can also write in the chat, and I will try to change my tone on something like this. Let's talk about our today's plan. I propose that in the beginning, anyway, I will just provide my point of view about why we should still use Delphi. Also, then we will discuss about migration. What's the best for you and for some existing software direction to go to the new version of Delphi or go to .NET Framework. Also, we will discuss exactly our some experience and maybe some tricks about migration from Delphi to .NET, and also migration to totally different platform, like for example from .NET to ASP.NET or mobile technology like Xamarin. And then in the end, I will provide some questionnaires that will help you. I hope make a decision. What's the best way for you? Just in the beginning, some words about Delphi. What the Delphi is right now. Delphi, I think you know, it is this independent development tool. It does not belong to any operating system owner like Microsoft, Apple, or Google, and it was very popular in 19th and 2000s. It was a really revolutionary technology for rapid application development, and even I started from Delphi 3, and I could compare it with other different existed Microsoft Visual Studio 6, and even in this for this time there is no other choices for such a quick way for introduction to the software development domain. Also, interesting fact that behind Delphi was Andres Hellsberg, and he was persuaded to move to Microsoft in 1996, where he worked as a lead architect of C#. And after that, in 2003, Microsoft introduced .NET and C# and Visual Studio 2003. Just for example, for me, this is like Delphi-like ID for those time. And Visual Studio becomes a major competitor for the Delphi for Windows desktop development. Since that, I think .NET caught the leadership. However, today Delphi is up-to-date technology, and it's been validated by Embarcadero. You know, this it's a corporation which headquartered in California, United States. And Delphi community is very huge and comprised with very experienced engineers and developers. And I can say this words because I participated in different conferences and I know all these people. Now just 2 slides about why we should still use Delphi right now. And of course, it will be pros and cons. I will start from the pros. The first item is just like it's really easy to use designed for rapid development because I also have an experience in developing from WinForms and WPF, and of course, for example, Delphi can provide you rich UI with very easily way. But if, for example, compare with WPF, it's totally different. It's not easy to build some complicated grids, trees, or interfaces. Easy to deploy. It's of course it's a pros. You just have one executable with some maybe DLLs. You can just deploy it and it will work. You don't need to think about all these .NET versions, about all this deployment, all these prerequisites and deploying all these assemblies, and they have different versions. So it can be a huge headache. Delphi right now has again the huge set of third-party components. For example, my favorite rather is TMS Software, a company which provides a huge set of components for almost for all areas. Regular, of course, new releases of Delphi and Red Studio. I'm checking all these releases, and I can say that Embarcadero have a lot of, again, resources for supporting and introducing new features from the operation systems. Again, it's like pros, the possibility of saving development budget during migration instead of developing from the scratch. This is again, this is all about the migration, because I think that it's a pro that you just can update your legacy software to up-to-date Delphi version, and you will have the fresh version. And of course, it's a cross-platform framework, because it already, frameworking was introduced many years ago. But for example, what Microsoft tried to do right now with the core multi-platform solution, it's only 1 or 2 years. Now about the cons. Of course, this is what I'm here around me. Some of them it's not like my position, but this is what I'm hearing around me, and what our clients are saying. The first one is like future. What will we have in the future? Will Embarcadero have enough resources to competitive on par with our development tools? Because it should be a lot of budgets, okay, for technology, but also to the marketing, because they have to explain that the tool is very amazing, up to date, and you have to use it. The second risk is will we have enough specialists and developers on the market for supporting and developing this project? And this is also a risk which I very rarely hearing from my clients. And because of all of this, we have negative information noise. That Delphi is obsolete. Young developers and students don't want to learn this technology because it's not fashionable. That technology, blah blah blah. And for example, I all the time trying to explain, just look, but this is all about the marketing, I guess. And also in 19th and 2000s, Delphi was started universities, but now it's something something different. But you know that Embarcadero introduced free version, community, and I hope right now the situation will be changed. Like as I already said, Delphi is not an operating system owner, Embarcadero, I mean. So this is why all the time, it will be a step back from Microsoft, Apple, and Google. When Microsoft in parallel improving operation system and provide and implementing at the same time this features, for example, for the Visual Studio, Embarcadero has to wait, and only after some releases and some SDKs for the vendors implement this new features. Not suitable for web development, and this is according to my experience, because web development is going very close to the web server and operation system. This is why ASP.NET is best for the web development for Microsoft, and PHP and LAMP stack, for example, for Apache and for Linux. And the latest comes from my point of view, the time consuming for the development of complex mobile applications. We have, and I also have an experience on developing mobile application with FireMonkey, and one weak place is integration of different custom SDKs from the providers, which already exist in, for example, for native platforms like Android Studio and Xcode, but and even for Xamarin, but this SDKs does not exist for the FireMonkey, unfortunately. Because it's not so popular tool, and creating all these bridge files and implementing all these SDKs for FireMonkey, it's not an easy task. What is application migration? Different companies has different terms, and of course, it can be divided in many different directions. It can be migration from deployment environment from one to another. for example, from on shared hosting to cloud solutions from Microsoft, like Microsoft Azure and Amazon. Migration from one technology to another one, like from Delphi to ASP.NET, or from, for example, WPF to Delphi. Migration, it can be migration from legacy to up-to-date version of the same technology, like from Delphi 7 to the latest version of Delphi, which is also is very popular. Migration can be like migration from one platform to another one, like from Linux to Windows, from PHP to ASP.NET, and of course, the data migration from one type of database management system to another one, from relative database to document database. And here we will talk more about migration existed software to the same technology or to the maybe totally different platform, like from desktop to web or from mobile. Again, I think that everybody after some time began to think, do I need migration and why do I need it? And the most popular reasons is like UI looks very ugly. It's too hard to find skilled developer for the technology. You cannot easily enhance your software, add modern features because your existing version of IDE, for example, does not support Windows 10 features, or it's problems with forms, with fonts, and for example, problems with locations. Or for example, you want to have not a desktop software, you want to have 24/7 software which you can reach from any place of the world with a web interface. Or for example, again, like a lot of situation, especially for enterprise, when they have some software written for which some technology is not supported, with no official support, and like COBOL, for example, and what to do? They have to make a decision for security reasons, go to something different or to something up to date. Or for example, you need migration if you already want to have a mobile version of your software, because right now it's very popular and everything goes to as a mobile. What are the risks of each migration? It's, according to our experience, the first one is like a communication risks, because usually migration will be performed by another team or developers or employees in the same company, but which which don't know the how this software works, don't know very deep the technological domain and any nuances. Also, during migration, it's a risk to have a bad source code, because something could be written in 10-15 years ago without patterns or principles, and source code is bad, and during migration you will migrate this code to something new, like from legacy Delphi version to up to date, and you will still have the same bad code, and you will need to perform a code review, but this code review can take the same time like writing something from the scratch. Also, very dangerous risks. This is like, instead of saving the time of development budget, it can burn the same amount of hours like developing software from the scratch. And it's also bad budget control, wrong initial migration estimation, very specific technological domain which cannot be explained easily for the developers and employees, and the psychological risk that during migration if you are migrating from old systems, the same framework, to up to date, you will think that maybe I still use an obsolete framework. Okay, the latest version, but it's not so popular that all these millennials like, and I'm not in the trend. If we're talking about migration exactly to .NET framework, the major risk is like extremely optimistic estimation, because usually people when estimate existed software forgot about migration and estimation for the migration a huge amount of third-party components, because the Delphi it's a world of components, and it's built with this philosophy. And when people just take some code, this is I even saw such situation, just take some Delphi code, okay, measure a list of rows and lines, and after that provide some estimation, but they don't think that it's a lot of components which just one line in the source code. But if you will migrate it to something different like .NET framework, if you won't have the same component or control in .NET framework, you can spend a month for realization such functionality. Also, the risk is like, again, what's the reason to migrate from Delphi to .NET? For example, WinForms, just migrate the same what you have right now, and you in the end you will have the same software with the same functionality, but with a lot of new bugs which you have to go through the beginning, fix all of them, and what's the difference? There is it did not have a sense to migrate from Delphi to .NET, because you didn't have any benefits. And I also saw a lot of such examples, like because of just developers wanted to teach something new, suggested to the business, let's go from Delphi to .NET, because I just want to be an expert in .NET, and in the end they have almost the same, but after spending a ton of money. For huge projects with a lot of backend and business logic, again, there's a huge chance that migration does not finish at all. And I also, in the end of webinar, will provide some, use cases from our experience, like success and failed case of this migration from Delphi to .NET framework. And also the risk that if you are migrating a real life project, which is, for example, is changing each, I don't know, week, each month, and it's not like just frozen and finished, and that you can be you can have a problems when all your migration project will be like 1, 2, or 5 steps back of the existed one, because existed old legacy project will be changed, and you have to on the fly implement the same changes in your new migrated software. This is right now we discussed like pros and cons of Delphi.NET, like which type of migration do we have, and so on. And I think on this slide you already have a understanding, and that you already have migration to Delphi, for example, or to .NET framework. As I told, I am a Delphi evangelist, and I bid for Delphi, but life is life. We have prepared a questionnaire that will help you outline which migration path you can select and decide which technology to use for the migration new version Delphi or .NET framework, and I will provide this questionnaire in the end of the webinar. Also, who interested in migration techniques from Delphi legacy version to up-to-date Delphi version, we already had a webinar which you can check here, and those webinar explain exactly process and tricks from migration from legacy Delphi version, like for example Delphi 7, to up-to-date Delphi, like Delphi Rio. Later you also we will I think send link to this recording to the current webinar, and you will be able to reach this link and check if it will be interested for you. If we're talking about migration to .NET Framework, what are the possibilities of .NET? And it's very, if compare, of course, with other tools, it's very wide. We can migrate to desktop WinForms on WPF. We can migrate to web applications, and it can be a web or cloud based. It's like right now, last 2 years, Azure become it's a huge platform for the development of web application, with all these in portal possibilities. Like you can develop, debug, deploy via the browser all these applications with C#, and it will like web applications. With Xamarin, we can go to iOS and Android cross-platform application development, and like combination of this kind of platforms. It's like hybrid software when we can divide our existing application to the thin client for desktop with UI, and for example REST API server in the cloud in the Azure. What we suggest, and what according to our experience usually, where is it, and what's the resource intensity and project management for this migration from Delphi to .NET Framework? There's a section called budget control, and if finally you made a decision to go to .NET, you have to understand that it will be in 99 cases it will be development new software from the scratch. We tried to use some for example divide existed code to some DLLs or some modules and use them in the .NET framework, but it's almost not impossible. It's okay if you already have some Win33 and Win64 DLLs which you can use in the .NET like unmanaged code, but it's not a good solution. But in real project, possibility of such solutions is like goes to zero. But like a pros, if you're developing something from the scratch, it's like again good pros. You can cut all your dead features and that code which never used, and also you can think about during estimations that, for example, the software which was written 15 years ago, right now maybe it needs just like 30 or 40% of functionality, because during all these 15 years it was a lot of some features for the exact customers which no longer needed, and you just can cut all these features and write something from the scratch, something beautiful. But of course you can do the same with Delphi, but now we're talking about the .NET framework. Also it's very important to show the results of this migration, especially if this migration will go months and months and maybe years. Because if we are talking about development from the scratch, something more complicated that form which will track list of contracts and add, edit, and delete the contract, it can take months because you're again developing from the scratch, and it should be anyway agile methodology when you will have something which work after each iteration, after each sprint, and the business has to should have a possibility to see the results. It's again, according our experience, like 50% of the fails where just the business did not have attention to weigh the results of this migration, because a lot of projects with Delphi are really huge, which were built 15 years ago for financial, insurance, and other sectors, and this is just impossible to migrate them in one shot. Also, it's very important. During migration to .NET, think about the domain, because, for example, just like example, when we are migrating from Delphi 7 to up-to-date Delphi version, theoretically, we don't need to know the domain very deeply, because developer is just trying to migrate UI, some syntax, source code syntax changes, some components changes, and something like this. And he don't need to understand, for example, how works this financial calculations, because formula is the same. But if we're talking about migration to .NET, and this developer maybe can just but by one eye to check the existing Delphi source code, but he has to develop everything from the scratch. And usually there is no described business logic, scenarios, any information about existing software, and this is a very weak place, and it should be a very strong business analysis for them during the migration from Delphi to the .NET framework, because you have to develop everything from the scratch. Also, a lot of time will take designing the UI, because Delphi, it's a really drag and drop tool. But if you will choose WPF, unfortunately, you need a really experienced guy. But again, I'm not talking about the element applications with just grid and a couple of buttons. And of course, you have to understand that development, exactly writing the source code and quality assurance will take a lot of time. And we very suggest to create your own return of investment formula, and you have to understand which benefits will bring you the migration to .NET. It should be not only like you want to teach new or learn new technology. It's good. It's very good to have a lot of knowledge in different areas, but we are talking about the business view. That business is thinking about the income, benefits, new clients, new metrics, marketing, and so on. And for example, if you will suggest somebody that you want to go to .NET framework, you have to provide some arguments why .NET framework is better. It's very clear if you go into web and, for example, mobile, because mobile you have also in in Delphi, but if you go into web, it's more clear, of course. But if we suggest for our client migration from Delphi desktop to .NET desktop, it's a lot of questions, and I, for example, don't see the reasons. And even when somebody asking us provide some proposal migration to up-to-date Delphi and for example to .NET even WinForms. I'm telling that sorry, but we don't see a lot of benefit, and they just build the development for the development. Now, a couple of words about this, like examples of this success case and failed case. It will be more clear which types of projects more suitable for migration.NET and which one is more suitable to migration to up-to-date Delphi versions. Here is a success case. We had a client which had a hotel management system software. It was for managing for rooms, clients, and everything which you have in the hotel. This is about the hotel management system, and they have a lot of hardware and hardware providers for this door locks, systems for managing TVs, a lot of remote payments for different services. And this existing software was built with Delphi. It has not too many forms, so just 3 forms. It used SQL Server reporting, and it was built on DevExpress beautiful grids. And here our client really had migration goals, and it's very important that the client already have migration goals, and it's not like we are inventing for him these migration goals. One of these goals, it was like he wanted to go to the WPF. It's really possible to design very beautiful grid, and he didn't want to buy and pay it for the third-party components, especially for DevExpress. Okay, it was his decision. And one of the most important, it was because of they had to integrate a lot of different hardware, and this hardware already had SDKs for .NET Framework, with like assemblies, which can be very easily attachable to the .NET Framework project. Of course, we can use this for Delphi also, but all the time you have to register it, create the TLD file, and it's not so quickly like just changing and adding the reference in the Visual Studio project. And like a result, this migration was really successful. It was ended. Finally, it was ended, and after that, client has used the software, not like he put it on the bookshelf and just was again like development for development. This migration took not too many hours, and like a result, after that, integrating all this new hardware SDKs. For the new vendors, after that, it can took like 50-60 man hours instead of like 200 hours for Delphi. And of course, like they wanted, no need to pay for upgrades and support for third-party components. This was really success case. And here is not a success case. This is a failed case. We already had, and right now we have a customer which have a pass payment software for entertainment centers. It's like for swimming pools, aqua parks. It's a really huge system. It consists of many modules. You can see like more than 200 forms, 33 frames, realization, lot of hardware SDKs, and it's a really software. It really works on a lot of objects with a lot of support, changes, customer improvements. It has a lot of different components like DevExpress, Raise, or lovely JVCL. It's working on the Firebird 1.5. It's not, it's really legacy version. And migration goals, it's like there is no migration goals, just they have their own team of developers, and they told to the boss, let's go to the .NET, it's popular, it's a lot of informational positive noise, let's go, why not, let's go. And they did not specify any return on investment formula. And they put this project to us. Of course, we provided our own point of view. It nobody heard this. Okay. And after we developed it and spent more than 1,000 hours, man hours, development was just stopped because it was maybe migrated 10% of all the system, and the client understood that it's not important, that it does not have a sense. Right now, everything works very good. We can keep everything up to date, and maybe right now, just maybe, for when they add in something new, like for web, right now they have an experience how to use this .NET framework. It can be for web, like web interface for ordering the tickets, or it can be like a mobile application for the tablet for the waiter in the bar or restaurant. But the core system should work like it worked before, and it worked perfect. And this was our failed case. Finally, everybody was unhappy, but okay, that's real experience. It's almost the final slide, guys. And this is this questionnaire which I talked about. It's like, again, my also this like I'm thinking when you have to use .NET and which type of the framework of .NET. I know that everybody can read this, and this is why I don't see the sense to read all these blocks. We will we will provide later the link to this webinar, and you will be able to make a decision for you what to choose for yourself, what's the best. Now, if you have any questions, we can talk. You can ask them in the chat, and maybe I can help you exactly with some of your problems or provide some ideas. Also, of course, you can reach me by Twitter or by email, and I will be glad to help you to solve some issues. And also, maybe if you, again, it's like advertisement, if you don't have any resources or you have some references, you can suggest us and our company, and maybe you even can provide and create something together again, because I think if we have people here as Delphi people, and I think that we have to be connected to each other and to help each other. And again, like a recap of our webinar, I'm like a Delphi MVP. I'm bidding for Delphi, and I'm trying to suggest and to provide for the people information about this. Right now, today, when we're talking about, as I told, with all this negative information noise about Delphi, because I think that's not true. It's all the marketing from the other systems with huge companies like Microsoft, and like I see my mission like fighting for the Delphi. And provide this solution for the new development or migration. Okay. Let me wait a little bit. The questions, or if you don't have questions, you also can write something in the chat. I hope this webinar was helpful for somebody, and maybe it will be some arguments, maybe for both, for yourself, make a final decision what to do. Again, you can check our previous webinar about migration from legacy Delphi versions to up to date. Thank you very much also for coming. Thank you, guys. Thank you. I hope see you later on our next webinars. If again, it's very important. If you will have any ideas how we can help you with exactly technical maybe techniques, you also just provide some feedback in Twitter or by email. Does not matter in the comments, and maybe we will provide some techniques, tricks, because this webinar was not so technique, because if we will talk about the software development, exactly some principles, it can, one theme can take one webinar. This is right now was about the principles of migration to .NET Framework. Okay, thank you. In this case, I'm disconnecting. I hope see you later. Bye-bye.